Hey, it's Michael Caputo again for Still Standing. You can catch my videos and my audio podcast and some blog posts at stillstandingpodcast.com. If you like them, subscribe. It's free. Why not? I love Jobs Day. Every month, it's my favorite day of the month. Probably because I used to work for Job Creators Network, and it was our day when we went to the media and peddle our spokesmen out there, CEOs from big companies, to talk about what really happened with the monthly jobs report. It's the first Friday of January, and here we are with an incredible jobs report out of the Trump administration. It looks like we're at, I guess the number was something like 312,000 jobs were created in the month of December. The expectation was at 184,000. That's almost double what the expectations were. That's enormous. That that means including revisions and everything else. The average monthly job gain for October, November, and December of 2018 was 254,000 jobs. That's as robust gets in an economy. And now, what's really important to understand, you saw a little bit of an uptick in the unemployment rate. People don't understand how, if we created so many jobs, we go from 3.7% unemployment to 3.9%. But the real reason is because something like, I guess it was 420,000 Americans decided to get off the sidelines and look for work. They joined the workforce. And so the labor force participation rate, I know it's a confusing term, went up from I guess it rose to 63.1%. That's 0.2 of a percentage rate higher than November. That's actually zero point 0.4 percentage points higher than December of 2017. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge. The labor force participation rate is the number of Americans who are in the workforce working or looking for work. And that had been low for a lot of years. And in fact, I guess it was, it's many years ago when we were something like 68% or something like that labor force participation rate. That held for 3 decades until 2008, when the economy crashed and Obama came in as president. So Trump's official rate of 3.9% is actually kind of a little bit deceptive, and I'll tell you why. We're well below that. I guess it's 66% that held for 30 years. If we had the labor force participation rate, we've had so many people return to the workforce during Donald Trump's presidency. If we had just last December's labor force participation rate, the unemployment rate today would actually be 3.3%. That's 0.6 of a percentage less than what's reported at 3.9. You actually have to go back to the 1960s to get to a 3.3% unemployment rate. Now, that's fudging the numbers because that doesn't take into account the size of that labor force participation rate. But for our number, our real number, which is 3.3% today, looking at last year's labor force, you have to go back to the 60s. That's an amazing feat. And of course, you had the media. I was really entertained by today's media coverage because I watched CNN. They said, they summed it up in one word: wow. I was impressed by that. CNN isn't exactly a friend of the president, but you have to understand it. While during the Obama presidency, the labor force participation rate was going down, and his unemployment rates were fairly juiced because there were fewer people in the workforce. It looked like unemployment was going down faster. And if you look at Donald Trump's unemployment rates, it's kind of deceptive because his falling unemployment is actually happening with the labor force participation rate ticking up. So that's actually a lot better job numbers by comparison, a real genuine comparison. So if it's 3.9, it's actually 3.3. And if you look at the labor force participation rates of the Obama years, it's even lower. That's pretty funny to me because if you remember, when we talked about labor force participation rate at the Job Creators Network during the Obama years, the Obama administration and all the liberal defenders of the president would say that the labor force participation rate is going down because the baby boomers are leaving. That was all baby boomers retiring. Remember? That's what they were saying. It's all baby boomers. It's you can't even compare it. It's really not fair to the president. Well, what's happening now with 420,000 Americans coming back into the workforce in the month of December? Are those baby boomers all deciding they got to go back to work? That's pretty funny, if you ask me. It's pretty much proved the Obama excuses were incorrect. The labor force participation rate, the size of the labor force, was getting smaller because there weren't jobs and people were giving up. And now, under the Trump presidency, they're deciding it's time to go back to work. It's looking good. There's enough jobs out there. I'm not so depressed about being unemployed. It's time to go back to work. 420,000 people got off the bench and got in the game. That's pretty incredible. But even though CNN called it a wow today, I was entertained. I was waiting for the mainstream media, the resistance media, to chime in, and I didn't have to wait long because the report comes out at 8:30, and at 8:33, the Washington Post came out with this headline: "The U.S. economy added 312,000 jobs in December. Hiring remains strong, especially in manufacturing, but economists cautioned growth is expected to slow in 2019 because of trade fears and the duration of the nearly decade-long recovery." Let me repeat that to you. Hiring remains strong, especially in manufacturing, the Post said, and many who had struggled to find work came off the sidelines in 2018. But economists cautioned that growth is expected to slow in 2019 because of trade fears and duration of the nearly decade-long recovery. So basically, the Post, took the shine off of Trump's tremendous jobs numbers in December 2018 by stoking trade fears that they've been talking about for a year that have not slowed down job growth, not a bit, and they've been stoking those fears for over a year. And in addition, you see how they slid into a decade-long recovery. The duration is too long of the decade-long recovery. They had to slide in a little bit of credit for Barack Obama there, right? Barack Obama's got nothing to do with the December job numbers. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Nada. This is all Trump. This is all his deregulation agenda, his tax cuts. There are just jobs everywhere. Now, listen, there are three things that I take away from this, and I think you should too. These job numbers really kind of make a mockery of market fears that we're falling into a recession. If you got job numbers like this, labor force participation rate going up, and by the way, wages going up, which is a huge, huge issue. Wages have always been a problem to the point where during the Obama years, they couldn't get wages to hike at all, and wages are kind of slowly creeping up. So if you've got jobs being created at record numbers, you've got a jobless rate at 3.9, but really 3.3. If the labor force participation rate is growing steadily, and wage growth, you're going to tell me that we're tilting into a recession? I wouldn't let the markets get you scared about that. Number one. Number two, this is really proof that the Obama excuses of the baby boomers leaving the workforce, causing his labor force to shrink. I think that's ridiculous. Makes a mockery of that as well. But I think it's important also to remember this, and this is something that you really should take note of. Now, in 1998, when Bill Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives, he had a robust economy. He had just gone through a re-election, and I think the rate was 4.3% unemployment. And the Senate, a lot of analysts will tell you that the Senate didn't dare convict him and remove him from office because of the robust economy. Things were going gangbusters, and his unemployment rate was 4.3%. 4.3%. Donald Trump's absolutely beats that, hands down, even when you consider the labor force participation rate. So, Those jobs numbers weighed heavily into the Senate's decision not to mess with his presidency. You want to go ahead, the House wants to go ahead and impeach President Trump. I think they're going to. I think it's going to happen before the kids get out of school for the summer. But not only will the Senate not do it because of the fact that it's really heavily tilted toward the Republican side, but also this level of jobs numbers, if the president can keep it at this level, probably protects him enough where he could even run for re-election after being impeached. That's the real question here. Remember, when Bill Clinton was impeached, it was his second term and he wasn't going to run for re-election. But when he left office, after being impeached, he was at 72% approval rating. Now, part of that is because people were kind of, nostalgic for his presidency. They knew he was leaving. But if you're going to tell me that impeachment is going to kill Donald Trump's chances to run for re-election with job numbers like this and a history of impeachment not doing deadly damage to Bill Clinton, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. I don't want the president to be impeached, but I don't think with this economy and these robust numbers, if he can hold on to it, I don't think he's got real big worries for re-election. Right now, at 42% approval rate, people say 40, 42, that still makes him the slim kind of narrow favorite for re-election. It depends on who the Democrats choose, and they're going to eviscerate each other, winnowing their field from 30 down to 1. I'm really happy about today's job numbers, and anybody who supports President Trump should be happy too. But more importantly, all of us, anyone looking for a job, whose son's looking for a job, whose daughter's looking for a job, whose wife or husband is looking for a job, this is impressive. Don't fear recession. I think everything's going to be fine. And I really hope that these job numbers hold for Trump's sake, for the nation's sake. And despite the Washington Post stoking those trade war fears and crediting this a bit in a backhanded way to Barack Obama, this is all Donald Trump. Every single bit of it. And a little bit of the Republican Congress. Good luck, Democrats, as you go out and try to kill this economy. Because I think people aren't going to support you when we've got job numbers like this. Michael Caputo for Still Standing. Remember, stillstandingpodcast.com. Go there, check it out. A lot more content there. Blog posts, videos like this one, and a weekly podcast, which I think you might like. Have a great day. Take care.